Hey folks, I'm Ike Eastman, your host. I wanted to share with you my recent experience with Sawyer products. They offer a great selection of products that are must-have if you're on an outdoor adventure. Their range includes water filtration systems, insect repellent, sunscreen, and even first aid kits, so you can be prepared for any situation in the backcountry. I highly recommend their dependable and top-notch lightweight products for your next outdoor adventure. The water filters work in any situation. They even have one that is good for 400,000 gallons of water. And if you buy a water filter, you're helping to save lives all over the world. They donate millions of filters to communities that don't have clean, drinkable water. I also love their sunscreen. It lasts all day, is not greasy, and is virtually scent-free. Their bug spray repels ticks and other biting bugs. You put it on your clothes or your pets, and it's good for 6 washings. It even works on my horses. So before your next adventure, check them out at Sawyer.com and let me know you heard it. So before your next adventure, check them out at Sawyer.com and let them know you heard it here, and thank them for supporting Eastmans. Battlefield to backcountry. In these times of uncertainty, it is important to find communities that share your value and interest. Cryptic has built a reputation for excellence in outdoor gear, providing effective camouflage patterns for all kinds of activities, everything from hunting to tactical operations. Their commitment to quality and epic design is evident in their range of apparel and gear, making Cryptic the perfect choice for any outdoor adventure. Don't miss out on gearing up for the upcoming hunting season with Cryptic today.
Welcome to Eastman's Hunting Journal Podcast. I'm your host, Ike Eastman. Today I have a perfect guest for what we're talking about, which is family. David, let's talk, I'll let you introduce yourself because I don't know the whole story, but you can tell me what you want to tell the group. How's that? How
Sure.
you did this. So, raised hunting started when?
10 years ago.
10 years ago.
Yep.
So 2013, something like that?
Right around there, yep.
Okay.
Well, you know, obviously we started filming in 12, probably 11 or 12. And honestly, for us, we'd been filming our whole life. That's where it really all started. Family footage and stuff like that. And one day someone told me, you ought to do something with all this stuff. You know, a lot of it was family footage, but a lot of our family footage was hunting trips. Right. And fishing trips and things like that. And so I had all this archived footage, and it wasn't until someone approached me one day and said, what do you do with all your footage? And I was like, well, nothing. You know, I just did it because I love to do it. And one thing led to another, and next thing I know, we sat down with in 2013, we sat down with the Modern Legacy Productions and explained to him, I have all this footage and I don't know what I should try to do with it. Do you have any ideas? And he's like, I got a heck of an idea. You know, we're going to go after a family concept here. And raised hunting was born out of that.
So the story begins a lot further back. Let's talk about where were you born? You know, what got you into hunting? You know, that type of stuff. Because you live in Iowa now, but that's not original.
Yeah, and so it's kind of funny because I grew up inside the Beltway of Washington, D.C.
Oh my gosh.
In Virginia, yeah.
Jeez.
And I knew I didn't fit from the time I was a young kid. You know, back then, I was born in 68, so in the 70s, if you saw a deer, I mean, Mom, Dad, turn around, I want to go see this deer again, you know, and always wanted to go fishing. I grew up in a family that was big hardcore hunters and fishermen. I say that, but they were also not very, well, there wasn't a lot, I don't know how to explain it. More redneck, you know, that kind of thing.
The technique was pretty old school.
Yeah, exactly. And so anyhow, I started, and we've been talking a little bit about some of this stuff, I started buying and watching VHS tapes.
Yeah.
That's when that all started. And so I was seeing that other people actually could take what my family was doing and hunt more appropriately, or there was this calling stuff that guys were doing. There was all kinds of stuff.
New equipment, new tactics.
And I fell in love with it. And so I started, you know, just doing anything that I could. So by the time I turned 16, 17, I'm now thinking about, I got my first bow. My brother introduced me to a bow and arrow.
Nice.
And so that got me
What kind of bow was it?
A bear.
Oh, you're kidding me.
No, bear, whitetail too.
And you guys are still shooting bears now, right?
We still shoot bear today.
Wow.
I mean, so yeah, it was the bear whitetail too. I'll never forget it because, I mean, it was just a basic, there was no camo to it. It was just green. And that's what I started with. Killed my first deer when I was 18, with a bow and arrow, and just fell in love with it at that point. And bow hunting, I didn't become exclusive into bow hunting for a few more years, but hunting has always been a big part of my life. Then we had some tragedies that happened in my life. My brother passed away, and when all that happened, I needed to get away from the whole family environment that I was in, and we up and moved. My wife and I had met Karen in high school, so here we are, high school sweethearts now, married for 31 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's impressive. Congratulations. You've told me a lot of impressive things. That's probably one of the most.
Yeah,
that doesn't happen anymore.
We both would tell you we think we should get an award.
I think you do. Dying together.
Yes.
Having someone to share the life together. I've been married 25 years, and it's the same thing. Number one, my wife and I joke, I don't want to do that again. I don't want to go through all those trials and tribulations and learn each other, and no thanks. I know, but that's awesome. So you met them, and then where'd you guys move to?
So we moved to Arkansas first. My dad talked me in. My dad was a police officer for 38 years.
Okay.
And he tried to talk me into becoming a cop. And I didn't want to become a cop, but he said where he really thought I would fit was a firefighter. Okay. And I listened to him for a while. Long story short, I moved to Arkansas, and I went and tested there and got on the fire department. And that was kind of a hunting thing, because firefighting schedules give you a lot of time off. And so anyhow, so I had found what the career I wanted to be. What I wanted to do was be a firefighter. But in Arkansas, it was hot. It was, and this is, my family's from Arkansas, so hopefully I don't offend anybody when I say it was just really slow.
Everything.
Like no one was in a hurry. And when I say slow, like the lady at Walmart, there's 10 people in line, and she's like, "Hey, David, how are you today? And how's Karen?" And you just felt like this is not right, And so anyhow, I wanted to also explore more hunting opportunity, and so I was really thinking the Midwest, and I thought I'll move my career there. Karen was all about moving. She said, "I'll go wherever you go," and we'd been married now for about 5 years. But what she ended up pointing at Montana she's like, "I'd really like to live out west." Never been there. Neither one of us had.
Oh my gosh.
And so
like throwing a dart.
Literally. And so I went out and tested in Great Falls because they were having a test. And now she was supposed to go with me. We were going to make a trip and kind of look around. But at the time, she was 5.5 months pregnant.
Oh, with your oldest boy, Warren.
Yeah, and it was 105 degrees the day that I was leaving Arkansas.
Oh my gosh.
She says, "I'm not getting in that car for 28 hours.
No.
So you go look. And so lo and behold, I went out, I tested, I was offered the job. 6 months later, we picked up our family. Warren had been born by then. So at 6 weeks old, we moved to Montana. And so that really is that put us not even where we are now. We're there for almost 20 years. I ended up retiring early from the fire department. I herniated 3 discs in my back. And, but long story short, from that point forward, it brought us to Iowa. And I honestly believe, I tell people all the time, having lived in Virginia, Arkansas, Montana, 2 places in Montana, and then now in Iowa, I think that's another reason why we relate so well with so many different hunters. Yeah. Because I've experienced a lot of it.
Yeah, because you spent 20 years in Montana. You were a Montana.
Yeah.
Hunted 20 years.
Yeah.
And raised boys in that environment.
Yep.
That's awesome. So were you Great Falls, and where else? Where's the other place?
Whitefish.
Okay, so.
Well, if I told you where, no one would know where Olney is.
No. It's in the middle of nowhere.
It is.
Were you working in the fire department there too?
Nope, that was right when I retired. Okay. So anyhow, that retired me out, and Karen had become a financial advisor. And so her career took her there. Okay. And so now she had followed me for 20 years. Now I'm following her, but at the same time, I couldn't not work. Right. And that's what I was the guy fighting the fire department for my job. I was like, okay, come on, I'm still in pretty good shape, but basically in that career, once you're injured, then they can't have you, you're a liability.
Yeah, you're at risk.
Yeah. And so they were like, as much as we think you can do it, the legal side of it says you can't be here. And it was tough. That was a tough part of my life because I didn't know anything about firefighting. That's what I wanted to do. That's what I did. That's what I thought I was good at. now I had to find something else to do.
So how did you decide, okay, I'm a retired firefighter. I got all this footage. Somebody came to you and said, you should do something with this. Was that part of the process of changing careers with the retirement and struggling with that, or was it after? Did you kind of swimming around in what I'm going to do next for a while?
There was definitely some. It's not just like wake up one day and go, oh boy, this is what we're going to do. And no, so we started a regional show in Montana. And only because I was filming all this stuff. Karen's like, you're already doing all this. Why don't you try to do something with it? She kind of talked me toward it as well. And I was like, I just don't know. I have no connections or anything like that. And I guess maybe the biggest shot in the arm or the thing that gave me a boost that said, hey, you can do this, was I'm walking through the Great American Sports Show, I think Great Rockies Sports Show.
Right.
I'm walking through one of these, just a typical trade show anywhere, and this one's happened to be in Great Falls, Montana. Walking through, Primos had a booth set up there. Walked over, talked to the guy. I think I bought a VHS tape, or by that time they might have switched to DVDs.
Extreme Bulls 1005.
Yeah, exactly. So I buy a tape, something from him and maybe a call. And I talked to him for a little bit about elk hunting and went on my way. A few minutes later, Karen's there, but we were just separated, and she finds me and says, hey, did you go by the Primos booth? And I was like, yeah. She said, well, you need to go back. And I'm like, why is that? And she said, well, the guy wants to talk to you about being a pro staffer. And I was like, I don't know what a pro staffer is. I had no clue, So I walk over and I talk to the guy, and because she went by and was telling him my husband's big into elk hunting and all this stuff, which I'm sure
you never hear that at a show,
exactly.
Ever, right?
And so, long story short, though, he says, we need someone in this area, and I think maybe you could fit the bill. And so, if you don't care, I'd like to turn your name into Primos when I get back. And I was like, sure. Still not having any clue what I would be doing. And when I end up, I tell people this, and I mean it with all sincerity, it was tougher to get on that pro staff position with Primos than it was to get hired on the fire departments that I've been on.
Well, you can imagine they probably have about as many applicants.
Absolutely.
Maybe more.
It was like this long, drawn-out process, and I had to fill out all kinds. You had to have a full-time job. You had to do all these different things. And I was like, wow, these guys are serious. I mean, and it's just a part-time. You're not going to make a living at this.
No, you're just going around to trade shows is all you're doing.
Absolutely. But what it did was, one day my son answers the phone. He says, Dad, there's someone looking for David, and I can hardly understand this guy. And I answer the phone, and it's Will Primos. And Will says, we'd like to offer you a position. And the reason I say that kind of opened the door, because as I started progressing through elk calling, that was where they really kind of got in touch with me, was the elk calling part of it. I got invited a few times to go call for them on video and stuff like that. Well, then that turned into, cameraman got sick one day, and I'm standing there. They're going to cancel the last 2 days of the hunt. And I was like, I could probably run that camera for you. And he's like, what are you talking about? It was Brad Ferris.
Okay, yeah.
And I was like, yeah, Brad, I think I could do it. I need, they're all similar, you know, I mean, I need a crash course on your camera. And he was like, all right. And so we went through it, and he's like, we're hunting tomorrow. I said, perfect. So I had just gotten a major pay raise, no money involved in it.
Upgrade. You got an upgrade in responsibilities.
So that started the conversation, though, about where did you learn how to film. Ended up showing them some of the footage, and then Primo started using some of my stuff inside their hunts, on their bow hunting reels.
Yeah.
At that time, they were putting out.
They had TV shows. I think they had 2 at that time.
Yep.
They had videos that they were doing, and it was all unique content.
Yep. So they needed a lot of stuff. And so that gave me the confidence that, okay, if they can use it on television, then obviously I could too, as well.
Right.
So when you talk about that floundering in there, that was kind of the years of it. I had no idea where God was taking me. You know, I just knew that I was on some kind of a ride, and little tiny things were coming together. That's awesome.
Walking through doors that are open.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's pretty cool that Karen recognized, that you were struggling, probably mentally struggling with what do I do now, lost soul, and was able to connect the dots like this could be you. You could be doing this, and it's stemmed from there. That's really neat. So, raised your boys in Montana, and then moved to Iowa. that seems, in this day and age especially, that seems backwards. There's a lot of people moving from places like Iowa trying to get to Montana.
Right.
Montana's one of the largest growing states in the Rocky Mountain West. So why Iowa?
Well, again, this was kind of a forced deal. The place we lived in Montana, when we lived in Great Falls, I love Montana in general, but certain parts of it don't lend themselves to hunting very much. And the Northwest Territory, northwest corner of it, I don't want to say Northwest Territories and confuse somebody. We're not in Alaska or we're not in the Yukon, but there was nothing left. The elk had been demolished by the grizzly bears, the wolves, the mountain lions. And so what I found was it was 5.5 hours for us to drive anywhere to go hunting that was of any quality.
Right.
And so that was pretty frustrating. And so what ended up happening was I asked Karen, I was like, any chance that your career could take us to a different spot? And
it got better hunting.
It got better hunting. And so we weren't really picking, like, there wasn't any set place that we wanted to go. We wanted to stay in the West, though. But it just didn't work out that way. What ended up happening, we got a phone call that another advisor had passed away in a certain area. Now, I was familiar with Iowa. I had come back to Iowa and deer hunted myself. So when she said it's in Iowa, and I was like, well, let's go look, and see what happens. Fly down there, take a look around.
We both went this time.
We both went this time. The first move was kind of a
shot in the dark.
We went just we decided this time we were going to look at it and make an informed decision, a little better informed decision. So we flew down, drove around, looked around the town, stuff like that. And I can just tell you, I mean, the West, as much as, like you said, we were part of Montana, it probably took 10 years before the people finally accept you that you are from here.
Right.
Iowa's not like that. It was really quite different. It was pretty amazing that, like, as soon as you get there, the Midwest people accept you and welcome you in. But
there's not a lot of people moving there.
No.
They're like, wow, this is neat. So
well, but
be nice to them at church, will you? We just increased our population.
It was fun, though, because the biggest draw to me was I loved Montana, but I was never going to be able to own a ranch.
Yeah.
I mean, that was, for those guys out there dreaming about owning a piece of ground, if you're going to own a piece of ground out there, it's probably either going to be really small, or if it is something really big, it's probably not going to be filled with wildlife. Yeah. It's just tough, I mean, it's just there's really not a middle ground out there. And that was one of my dreams, was always to own my own place where I could walk out the door and go hunting. And when we went to Iowa and we're looking at the real estate prices and things like that, I was like, this is doable. I could actually live here. I could actually own, number one, you don't have to own as much ground. A guy can own 10 acres and have a pretty good place to hunt.
Yeah, it just has to be the right 10 acres.
Yeah, I'm fortunate that we were able to buy a 50-acre piece and walk out our door and, I mean, literally decide, okay, I'm going to go turkey hunting this way or this way by standing on the front porch listening to them gobble.
Oh, that's cool.
So
yeah, that is a dream by everyone that is an outdoorsman, is just to be able,
absolutely.
Right here, we got the river right off the deck, and that has always been my dream, because I grew up actually on this river, and it is to be able to do what you love right from your porch.
Yeah,
do
very
it in the
much
evenings,
so.
in the mornings.
Yeah, so Iowa's been great. I mean, the boys had to finish school. They were in high school when we moved. Easton was actually in middle school, Warren in high school, and it's just been. I wouldn't trade it for the world, but at the same time, I wouldn't say that if I didn't get to live in Montana for 20 years and learn the West like I did.
Yeah.
Because we come back every year. It's worth coming back.
Yeah. Well, I was just talking to Warren yesterday. We fished all day yesterday on this river, and we had an absolute blast.
It was awesome.
It was great fishing, and a lot of jokes and a lot of laughing, and had some of my crew and your crew, and you guys filmed a TV show. It was just a lot of fun. It was just a lot of fun.
Absolutely.
But I was telling Warren yesterday, I said, you guys asked him, what do you guys have planned this fall? Because I know you come out here, and he actually drew a really good tag in Colorado. Yeah. And he has been hounding me for information on that. It's like, I'm going to shoot a mule deer. He's got a mule deer tag. And, where do I do that? How do I do it? And it was not that he needed help hunting. He just never been in that area. Yep. And so that was fun.
And Warren's the one that he's probably got the biggest bug for the West, because of when he was he was born. He was actually born in Arkansas, but 6 weeks old, he's moved to Montana. So he grew up in Montana. So he understands. He's killed an elk. He's killed a mule deer. It was small.
Yeah.
We whitetail hunted there. He's killed turkeys with his bow. But Easton was younger, and so Easton doesn't have the experience from the West. So it's one of those things where it's Easton's. We're all. I know Warren's super excited about his mule deer tag. But we're really excited about Easton's going to hopefully kill his first elk this year.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, this will be his first elk hunt.
Which state's that?
New Mexico.
New Mexico. So that's great. It's great hunting down there.
Yeah.
They're having a heck of a year too with weather, and so that's awesome. It's a lot of fun. So the concept of raised hunting, did you just sit down with all of your footage and go, what's the red thread here? Or what makes this unique? I mean, how did the family thing, because it is unique, and you guys, not a lot of people, well actually I'm not sure other people have never really intentionally did this, where it was all about the family and then hunting was what you do. It was
a combination. Again, I have to go back to Modern Legacy, Adam Jorgensen. We don't work with Modern Legacy any longer, but me and him gelled at the time, and he helped me produce the first 7 seasons, and he had a vision, and I had a vision. His vision was, let's make it look like a movie. My vision was, let's make sure that there's something connected to, and I tell everyone this because I truly believe it, whatever you do as a hobby, whatever you do, maybe it's not a hobby, it's more about part of your life. And that is, if you ride a motorcycle, you're going to teach your kids through what you do. You're going to use, okay, this is an analogy. If you laid the bike down, you're going to stand it back up this way. You're going to, get back on, hold your chest high, you do the same thing through hunting. The only difference is hunting is about taking an animal's life. And I take it extremely seriously. And even though I'll never apologize for doing that, I'll always try to do it with the most respect and through the best judgment that I can. I was delivering that to my kids all the time. So next thing we know, that's coming out, and it wasn't intentional necessarily. But all of a sudden people were writing in saying, man, your message is unbelievable, or your message did this. We've done things about brothers, and because I had a brother, I know I got 2 boys, I've watched them, you and your brother. It's not always, just the 2 of you getting along.
Yeah.
But yet it always comes back to that.
Yeah.
And even sitting here talking about it, when I start to think about those messages, I become extremely passionate about it. And because just like what you said, Karen and I being married this long, you guys have been married it's just not the norm anymore.
Right.
And so we wanted to project a good light. We wanted to make sure that people understood that hunting is not what people think. And I mean that there's so many people out there that think it's been painted that picture, a bunch of drinking, a bunch of idiots.
Hillbillies doing bad, poaching. It's the other thing, I talk about this a lot. The mainstream media, unfortunately, they have used poaching and hunting synonymously, and they are completely different.
100%.
Hunting is illegal, is ethical. It's an ethical taking of an animal for various reasons, but one of the main reasons is sustenance. It is knowing where your food comes from. Poaching is illegal. It is done without ethics. It's done, in horrible manners, and all hunters hate it because it's taking away from the resource, but it's also painting a bad picture for the people that don't do it.
Absolutely.
That they believe everybody does it that way, that's incorrect, 100% incorrect.
See, and the one I come back to as I try to, again, the message that we were trying to get across was that hunting needs some good advocates,
yes.
And if we could be that, then great. That was super, because the where I go with that is I try to explain to people all the time, hunters are the best conservation tool this planet has ever seen. Yeah. We've proven it time and time again in other continents, other countries, where the moment you take hunting out, the whole thing falls apart. So there's a reason that you need hunters, and so anyhow, I know that sounds crazy to think that you're out there filming and and do it, because it looks like we're having a lot of fun, and we are, but there's a bigger message behind what we're trying to do.
Are you an avid hunter looking for the perfect trailer to haul your gear? Look no further than Team Lodge trailers. These trailers are made in South Dakota and for the ultimate hybrid of a camper and a trailer. With the ability to haul your side-by-side ATV, dirt bike, e-bikes, and more, you'll never have to leave your gear behind. They are extremely sturdy with no wind shake or movement when someone is walking in the camper. Plus, they are waterproof and designed by hunters who actually use the product. The bear-proof base camp ensures to safety while out in the wild. You'll also love that these trailers are outfitted with the only accessories and the features you want. Premium components are used in every part of the setups, making Team Lodge trailers the best choice for your outdoor adventures.
Yeah, hunting is the conservation piece, because without hunting, the resource is not it's not valuable any longer. You can't put a dollar value to it. And when things aren't valuable, they have a tendency to be left behind and, discarded like trash. And other continents have proved that. Africa has proven that over and over and over again. When you take hunting away from it, it devalues the resource.
Right.
Yeah, 100%. And it is, I want to come back to the point you just made. It looks like we're having a lot of fun, and we always are, right?
Absolutely.
Out in the field, hunting is fun. If you're not having fun, you're not doing it right.
Right.
But the message really needs to be about camaraderie. It needs to be about ethics and teaching outdoors. What's going on around you. Your oldest son and I were talking yesterday, and I think it might have been Easton actually. And he would ask me stuff about the river, and I'd tell him something. He goes, "How do you know that?" I said, "Well, my dad." I said, "My dad has given me, when we would go on trips and stuff, we'd be driving everywhere. He'd do a number of things like, what river is this, or what creek is this, and then he'd say, okay, tell me how this creek gets to what ocean does it get to, and how, and this is the Bighorn. It falls into the Yellowstone, falls into the Missouri, falls into Mississippi, goes to the Gulf of Mexico." You do that all the time. We went through a chunk and we saw a mink yesterday, and they're like, "Oh, I think that's a river otter." I said, "No, that's a mink. It's a big mink, in fact, really big mink." And I go, "How do you know that?" And I explain this and explain that. I said, "Because that's what my dad would make us do. He would quiz us all the time, like, when do porcupines rut? Who needs to know that? I do." That type of stuff.
But it's worth knowing. I mean, and that's the thing is, it's just funny because you'll meet people, especially we're close to Yellowstone Park. I've been in the park. I've been standing next to people and heard someone tell. I listened to two other tourists one day, and one guy was telling a group. I mean, and they don't know, right? I mean, he's the leader, and he tells them, eventually that elk will grow into a moose. And
it's
so
just got to eat a lot of protein.
Yeah, but I mean, there was a whole group of people that now were waiting for these antlers to change into that as it gets bigger, it would do this and things like that. So I think the kind of stuff that your dad did for you, and hopefully the kind of stuff I'm doing for my boys and that they'll do for their boys or daughters or whatever, will be that we can pass on the outdoor way of life. There's so much to it. I mean, yesterday fishing, yes, we caught some fish and that was fun. But there were so many times I caught myself just looking in the water. Yeah. I was like, look at the rocks. Look at this, is so cool. Look at when we went to get out, the things that we saw at the end there, the sulfur stuff, and I could ask a gajillion questions because that kind of stuff interests me. And what I love about it is it's not man-made. Yeah. It's a bigger picture. It's part of Earth. It's part of all of this.
Yeah, and interestingly enough, that just spurred something in my mind. No matter if you live in Montana or Iowa or Virginia, you live in the Beltway, or if you live downtown Detroit, nature is happening around you
all the time.
It doesn't mean even if you're living in a concrete jungle, there's birds. Study the birds. Birds are fascinating to me. I mean, think about they are one of the only animals that doesn't have to worry about weather. They don't have to worry about food. They don't have to worry about prepping. It's fascinating. If you're sitting in downtown Detroit, check out the pigeons or whatever you have,
right.
And because you're going to learn how the world works by watching nature, watching birds react. And I think it's very important as a human to be understanding your surroundings.
And I go to the hunter side, you know, and I think of all those hunters out there that are stuck, because I was the guy hunting in Virginia. And when you're in that mode or in that's your only thing. It's whitetail deer, it's turkeys, there might be some upland bird stuff that you grouse and things, a few things like that. And then everything else, Wyoming, Montana, looks like a whole different, like almost like a whole nother continent. It's so far away. And I try to tell, you know, people that if I can do it, I mean, on a firefighter salary and everything, or on just the hope of, I've been across the country, the things that I've gotten to see, driving out to Wyoming, you know, yesterday, because I don't live out here anymore, I appreciate it so much every time I cross a mountain, not even the mountains, driving across the prairie where people are like, there's nothing out here. There may not be much out here, but there's something and it's different.
Yeah.
And it's cool. And so take the time to go enjoy parts of wherever it may be. You know, every part of this United States, every part of North America has something to offer the outdoorsman. I mean, for sure.
Yeah, that's awesome. So, Raised Hunting, you guys, TV show still on which channel?
Outdoor Channel.
So it's on the Outdoor Channel. What's your time slots?
11:30 Saturday mornings.
Okay, perfect time slot.
Yeah,
awesome.
We've had that one for 10 years now. So
that's awesome. And then you guys do a bunch of other stuff too. Talking with your boys, what are some of the other things that you guys are doing besides this TV show?
Now we have our own podcast, which is, and anyone who's listening to this podcast will know that David is not electronically or social media inclined. So I'm following the lead of my boys. There's a lot of stuff that has changed, and social media is one of them. Not that I mean, I understand what Facebook is and Instagram and all that, but I don't know the ins and outs of how to use it like they do.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's been a really excellent tool for us to get our message out there even more and to help more people. We answer every one of the messages that people come in. Now, on posts, I can tell you when these posts that hit 100, 200, 400,000 people, we're not answering every comment on there.
Right.
But if people message us, that's us answering. So we have a podcast now, we have a YouTube channel that we're promoting some other stuff, doing some more raw stuff on there as well. But yeah, I mean, and maybe the biggest one is now we sell our own line of scents.
I heard that, and you're coming up with, was there walking sticks? Did I hear that?
Yeah, climbing sticks.
Climbing sticks.
Yeah, so we got our own line of climbing sticks as well. And it's just kind of taken off. So it's almost more than someone wants to hear about, in my opinion, on a podcast. So just go to our website. Just go to raisedhunting.com and you'll find everything that we're doing. And
so the TV show's about you guys family hunting.
Yep.
Is that pretty much the podcast is?
It is, but Karen's not there all the time, so we're -1. She's there. She drops in from time to time. It's two boys and their dad coming from a totally different perspective, and we tackle some of the controversial topics and things like that, you know. So we're not afraid to tell you what broadhead that we will shoot, what broadhead we won't, you know. But we also, at least I am, of the belief that if you have confidence in it, that's the one that's going to work for you. You know, we're not out there bashing any companies and things like that. We're just giving you an honest opinion of, here's what we're doing. We're hunting a lot. We get a lot of opportunities to shoot a lot of animals and things like that. We saw this work really, really well, or this didn't work really, really well.
Right.
It's not, we might turn around and it might be one company we're talking about that something didn't work well. The next week we might be talking about, hey, they got this product that's awesome.
Yep.
You know.
Now your boys are in their 20s, right?
Yep.
Late 20s, early 20s. Grandkids on the way? Married?
No. Well, we just found out this past weekend that we are going to add a daughter-in-law coming up pretty soon. Warren proposed to his longtime girlfriend.
I was gonna say, she's not new. She's been around.
She's been around already. She's part of the family.
Better part of this.
Yes. So anyhow, don't know when that will be, but it's looking like that we're going to add a daughter-in-law to the family. Easton is still looking, so if there's any ladies out there, I'll put a plug in for him, you know. Pretty good kid, I'll vouch for him.
Yeah, it was fun. It was fun yesterday. You know, I got to be in the boat all day with your two boys, and it was really fun. Number one, it made me feel old. Oh my gosh, I'm in my mid-40s, they're in their mid-20s, and we are a generation apart, technically and literally. But it was a lot of fun because they're good kids. They're really good kids. They're very respectful. You know, they really wanted to know as much as possible about how this fishing works. So they never fly fished before.
Right.
And so we took them down, and by the end, all 3 of you guys could fish with me any day. It was a lot of fun. I will say this though. I'm going to plug Easton. I have never seen somebody with such eye-hand coordination that in about an hour and a half he could cast just as far as I could. That was impressive.
He's
impressive.
always been that. He's been the one since he was little that, you know, throw him a football, he'll figure out how to run with it, throw with it, dart around everyone. Give him a baseball, he does the same thing. So it doesn't surprise me that yesterday that he picked it up like he did.
Yeah.
Warren and I, we got to work at it a little more. You know,
I'm impressed because I'm like you. I always have to work at it. I wouldn't get anything if I didn't have hard work.
But I got to plug. I mean, you and Todd yesterday were just so patient with us because we had not done this. And so going down a river like this and trying to figure out a fly rod, all those fly fishermen out there right now, I got a huge respect for you guys. I had no idea that it was that much to it. You know, I just thought it was a technique and you figure out the technique, but there's not. When presentation is what I've always heard people say. I didn't understand that until now I fully understand it because Todd showed us. Here we sat around there for an hour in the morning trying to work everything out. He pulls a rod out in 10 minutes he catches a fish, you know, and I was like, holy cow.
I'm like, oh great. When I saw him do that, I went, well, at least they know there's fish in here.
Yeah, no, it was great to see that, you know, just told you that if you do this, I mean, he was just super patient, and Warren and Easton both said that you were the same way. So hats off to you guys for taking us on and helping us learn.
You know, nothing better than taking a Monday from work and getting on the river and calling
Absolutely.
at work. And you know, we built a bunch of content yesterday and had a podcast, had your guys' podcast the other night. And this podcast today, it's awesome. It's a lot of fun, and you're right. The fly fishing is it's a lot of technique, and it's a lot of being able to read water because the water's moving, the boat is moving. I mean, there's just a lot going on, and so if you see guys floating down a river casting a rod, hats off to them because they're
absolutely.
doing it and making an effort at it. So, well, I appreciate you guys. You know, everything you guys are doing, and hopefully So, how did you? I didn't ask the boys this because I think it came from you. How did you decide in scents and lures, not fishing lures, but attractants for deer? How was?
So that one came on because someone. I hate to be the long story, but I'll
That's okay. We got plenty of time.
I'll make it abbreviated version. It started from an elk hunt where I gave up on scents. Guy tried to talk me into using elk paste one time. Or you've probably seen you know, like comes in a butter jar.
Yep.
Anyhow, this guy insists, take this with you. And back then I would hike in for 4 days. That's about how much food I could carry on my back, what I had. And so I put this stuff in a Ziploc bag, throw it in my pack. And then back then I was cheap. And so I made, there wasn't like all these fancy bars and stuff. So peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. I would make 12 of them.
Oh my gosh.
And that's all I'd eat. I eat it for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And I mean, it wasn't about being fun. It was about trying to kill an elk. And so I made all my sandwiches, threw it all in my pack. I take off, I go hiking. I get where I'm going. I set up camp. I go hunt for the afternoon, looking around. I come back and I'm like, man, that elk stuff reeks. And so I grabbed it and I was like, all right, I'm going to put it away from camp. So I put it away from camp. I'm 6 miles in and I can still smell it. I open up one of my peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, and the scent had permeated the jelly.
My God.
So now you're not smelling it, you're eating it. And like you bite, the best way I could describe to someone was...
If you haven't smelt an elk, I am here to tell you they are the stinkiest animal on the hill.
And now take that and put all that pungence into a Ziploc bag.
And then put it in your mouth.
And you got to do it for 4 days. Because I
think I would have hiked out.
I had that opportunity. I was like, either I can leave or I'm just gonna. So I'd hold my nose and make myself eat this. So I threw that stuff away, and that kept me from ever using another scent again. And it wasn't, and that would have been probably 20 years ago. And then about 5 years ago, a guy talked me into. He said, you need to try these. They're glandular scents from whitetail deer. And I was like, I don't want to have anything to do with anything that's going to make my fingers stink. I don't want it on my stuff. I don't want
PSD about jelly sandwiches.
Nowhere around me. And he said, it's not like that. And so the guy opened the jar, and he kind of does one of these things next to my nose. And I was like, okay, I don't even hardly smell it. And it was very faint. And I was like, oh, okay, I could mess with this, but what is it going to do? It doesn't smell like anything.
Right.
Started putting it on mock scrapes that we were making because I was doing that already. And all of a sudden, my cameras just started picture after picture, buck after buck.
Really?
What's going on here? Next thing I know, I feel like I've found this crazy tool that no one else knows about, and I started changing some of the combinations. I would buy people's stuff and then mix it together. And long story short, as I ended up, I just started to tell a few people about it, and they were like, I'm going to start trying that. And everyone was getting this kind of result. And I was like, man, there is something to this. There is definitely a communication tool between the white-tailed deer through glandular sense, way more than anything because I've never had much luck with urine-based stuff. And so that started, we found a manufacturer, talked to him, said, look, I'd like to change. I'd like to come up with some of my own mixtures. Can you do it? And he was like, yeah. And so we sat down and worked on it and said, okay, we'll do a trial run. So last year was our first time coming out with the scents, and we couldn't keep them in. We sold out 3 times.
I'm going to have to try that. I have my daughter's got a deer tag down on the river, not this river, another river, and we struggle. I don't struggle finding bucks. I struggle getting bucks to where I need them.
Right. And
I'm going to try that.
Yeah, and I'm telling you, we're putting them right where we want them. Last year's deer, we actually have started doing some of our own rub trees. Put a rub tree in, put this stuff on the rub tree, and I shot the deer. The only reason he didn't rub the tree is I shot him as he ducked his head.
Wow. That's awesome.
Yeah. So
let me ask you this. Do you think it works on elk?
I don't know. We've had a lot of people ask about blacktails, mule deer, and I don't want to tell anyone anything. So what we've done, we've had a few guys that have taken the stuff and they're trying it and see if it'll work. Because this is all out of a whitetail right now.
Right.
But I don't know I think that there's got to be a communication level that they're doing. Because the big thing that I started to notice, if you go back and watch deer rub a tree, they weren't just rubbing the tree. When I watched them before, it was, a buck is here and he's rubbing a tree. Now you see that they're rubbing their forehead on there. They're licking it. They're putting their salivary gland on there. They're actually rubbing their eye on there, the preorbital gland, and they're saying something. And then as we started, Easton actually has done maybe even more studies than I have of what kind of communication. One deer can tell another deer whether he's sick, how old he is, where he ranks in the hierarchy. There's all kinds of stuff that is communicated through the glandular part of it, not through urine.
Which makes sense because they have, their sense of smell is so high. Why wouldn't they use it as a communication skill?
Especially when you can't talk.
Yeah. I'll be danged. That's really interesting.
Yeah, it is. Like I said, the interesting turned into we could provide this for a lot of people, and that's what we've started doing.
Huh. Well, if you ever, if you stumble upon stuff that works for elk, let me know.
I will.
Because that is one of the frustrating things about archery hunting is the bull always comes in on the wrong side of the tree.
Yeah, absolutely. I have a theory on that. I think God likes elk. And,
he must.
And because you can't get that lucky that often. They always seem to know how to get, of all the animals I've ever hunted, that one, elk will humble the most, especially archery hunters.
Yes.
An elk will humble you like you've never seen before. And I don't know if it's the fact that you come from a whitetail world or something like that, but they just have a way of getting away with more stuff than any animal should get away with.
For an 800-pound animal, they walk through the forest like a whitetail deer does through the thick brush.
Absolutely.
It's unbelievable.
Yep.
And their sixth sense of knowing where to be and when to stop. I can't count how many times a bull you go, if you would have just taken one more step, or if you would have stopped where in between that, whatever. It's like a sixth sense. It's unbelievable.
Absolutely.
That's cool. So, hiking sticks, scents, all the different platforms. What's next? What's the next thing on the raised hunting list?
I don't know. We're just waiting to kind of. We got some other things that are possibilities. We'll see if they come to fruition. Right now, we're just kind of enjoying the ride. So we're starting on our 11th season, so we're getting that. And then this fishing trip is going to make it onto next year's agenda, so we're looking forward to it. And just, man, I never would have dreamed that I would be sitting here 10 years later. I think when we started Raised Honey, I was just thinking a 1-year thing, you're just doing this, and next thing you know, it turned into more. So yeah, I don't know where we'll be next.
That's awesome. Well, it's been fun to watch, and it'll be fun to continue to watch to see
Absolutely.
what you guys do next. So I have a couple of last questions. First, we talked about Warren drew a deer tag. Easton's got an elk tag. What does David have?
David's going to be trying to kill the biggest whitetail because on our place, yeah.
I saw you guys were geeking out the other night. Did you pull camera cards and you were flipping through the photos? And that always makes me chuckle because obviously we don't have that opportunity out west. You can, but it's
way too difficult.
A needle in a haystack, right? Yeah. It's always fun to watch whitetail guys geek out about what deer are on the property, and you got them all named, and can we get this one? That's so much fun. So you're going to kill a big whitetail. Are you going to be able to go with the boys on their?
Being on Easton's first elk hunt, that's going to be extremely cool. So, and I mean, just getting to go on that, being here. This year's just a little bit less than normal, but that's okay. It doesn't matter. I've done so much already, Ike, in my life that I think I would actually look forward to kind of watching everyone else get to go do it, because I know what it feels like, and I want them now. And maybe that's different stages in your life. You just want someone else to experience it. I mean, pulling the trigger or catching a fish anymore for me is second. I'd rather be sitting there like you guys yesterday. I could have sat and rowed, watched my boys fish the entire time.
It was fun.
Absolutely.
Fun. So on that note, God willing, you have the ability to have a deathbed and it doesn't happen instantly, get hit by a truck or something. What are you going to be thinking about on your deathbed? What is really, really important?
I think the biggest thing that I would tell someone is live. Make sure that you can lay down that day and say, I did go do it. I did try it. I did, because so many people, I think they're either scared, talk themselves out of it, won't give themselves the credit that they should give, and I can say that we've done that. I mean, when it comes to raised hunting specifically, I tell there was only one goal, and that was to leave hunting better than we found it. And I think if raised hunting stopped today, or if I stopped breathing today, we're not done, but it's better than I found it. Right. And then on a personal note, I hope that I get to watch my boys start to raise their kids, because I know, well, one is I want payback, so, but two, I just know what it feels like. I just truly, there was nothing more, as much as I love hunting, I love family more. And there was nothing more that I wanted to see was to see my boys start to enjoy the outdoors. And so that for me would be enough, just to make sure that I've lived my life, and hopefully the people around me, I've left them better than I found them as well.
So obviously hunting is a passion, family's a passion. Do you have other things that you're really passionate about? So are you like a closet artist or something?
No, I'm not.
Pottery?
No, not at all. The hunting part of it, but I find as I get older that I'm starting to enjoy the small things, like go on a hunting trip, but I'm like looking at the water. Yeah. I'm starting to pay attention to those things more. So maybe there's a artistic side or a creative side behind that, or maybe you're just paying attention to it now, actually thinking about it, where I was noticing it before, but now I'm noticing it, on a higher level. Yeah. But yeah, no, hunting has been the number one, and it just, everything about it, and fishing is just like hunting, and I mean, it really is, and being outside, and it just is what it is.
So that leads me to the last question. What drives you to hunt? Why are you so passionate about it?
Boy, I don't know the exact answer, because I think the biggest part of it was because I didn't get to. Growing up, it wasn't like I had that opportunity. So therefore, you wanted it really, really bad. And then once I found it, there's so much to it. There's so many hunts. There's so many places to go, so many people to meet, so many places. Like when I think of places, a state, but then there's 20 different towns within a state that offer different things. The people that I've met. I mean, I'm 55 years old and I hadn't sat down with Ike Eastman or Todd or Luke or Scott or anyone. I made some new friends that I know without a doubt that we will visit again. We will do this again. I'll be in another camp somewhere with someone just like you guys, hopefully. And then there'll be someone like us, you know, someone out there that you come through generationally. I came through it starting the generation, but there's someone out there that's looking to take our place, you know, and hopefully I'll have some kind of a bearing on, you know, on them, and hopefully it'll be good. You know, that's all you can do is, I just hope that every place, I tell my boys all the time, anywhere that we go, we want to be invited back.
Yeah, that's great advice. Anywhere you go, you want to be invited back. That should be a bumper sticker, and probably ingrained in all of our brains. That's awesome. Well, I appreciate you coming on. It's been a blast few days. Had a lot of fun fishing yesterday. You guys are going to do some more fishing. I got a couple of things I got to go do at home. Drive home a couple hours here, and then I'm sure we'll do it again. This river's not going anywhere.
I can't thank you enough, man. And to all your listeners out there, you guys are listening to the right people. You guys have been, that's why we've been quizzing you like we have, because you guys are carrying that information and that knowledge, and so good about putting it into a magazine, putting it into a podcast, putting it out on television to get it out there. And hats off to you, my friend.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
No, thank you.